Welcome to the next episode of Resilience Pod. Today we're going to be talking about body comp changes and what to expect timeline-wise. So a lot of people expect that body comp changes happen really quickly. The amount of times I've had a client say, I've been working so hard, but I still don't see any changes. So let's talk a little bit about that. The first thing I'm going to say is just because you don't see changes doesn't mean they're not happening, right?
Yeah.
We often look at ourselves every day in the mirror, but because the change is so gradual, you don't always realize how big of a difference it's actually happening. And usually we don't realize that difference until somebody else says something to us, an external validation cue. So it's really challenging to go day by day, know you're working really hard, but not seeing the result that you're hoping for.
So body composition change that we're talking about here can sometimes be called weight loss. Mm-hmm. And we try not to use that term. It's like I'm jumping back a little bit, but we try not to use that term because it really is not a good descriptor of what's happening, right? Because so much change is happening when you go through these processes that like you're not just losing weight, you're trying to reduce the size of the fat cells in your body and thus change those. But when you're doing that, you tend to also have other changes like metabolic changes, muscle size increase, etc., and sometimes catabolization depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, especially when it comes to visceral fat, for example, right?
Right. So like all those different changes have to be accounted for when you're talking about this stuff, and that's why we're using the term body composition change versus weight loss. But it is a slow process because it's not as fast as we're kind of led to believe it should be by so many of the whether it's social media or whether it's just that dyed-in-the-wool kind of like ad expectation of various things, and especially now with the rise of the GLP-1 inhibitors.
Mm-hmm. I actually am instantly thinking of those magazines at the cashier's exit of the grocery store. Think of how many times, maybe you don't even realize it, maybe it's been a subliminal message to you, but that it says, lose 50 pounds in 3 weeks.
With this one quick trick.
With this one quick trick. Yeah. Trick. And it's really interesting when you actually look into what's happening. Most of the time it's, absolutely absurd. It's just clickbait.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe not clickbait because it's magazine, but
it was what clickbait was before it was clickbait.
Before clickbait.
Yeah.
And so the same thing still exists online. And, regardless of if you know it's true or not, seeing it all the time starts to make you believe that that's a possibility, and think of yourself as a failure because you're not succeeding in the way that you think you should be based on these examples that you think you've pulled from the environment.
Well, we've talked about it before, right? A lot of this stuff is about marketing the idea of lack, the idea that you're not good enough, that you don't have enough, that you don't, like your life isn't going the way that all these like fancy, wonderful people on the shiny pictures, either on social media or in the magazine.
In our last podcast.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's the same type of thing where I think that you need to hear something 3 times before it starts to kind of like take hold in your brain. So
and if you have ADHD, it's more than that.
or like like less. If you're already dysmorphic, like you look at yourself and you don't see the person you want to see, reading those things just kind of reinforces that cycle, and it can lead to just like bad feelings about the self, but it can also lead to harmful behaviors for other reasons, right? So like you're saying, the first thing you have to understand is that fat loss and like body composition change is a slow process, right?
And some people do have crazy transformations in a shorter period of time. But I will tell you right now, to make that happen, it is unsustainable.
Right.
And they probably have a lot more disposable income in order to make something like that happen. More time, more income, and not sustainable in order to get that effect. It doesn't work for 99% of the people out there.
And fast to lose is fast to gain, right?
Correct.
So like there's a lot of people that will go on some sort of a crash diet and they'll go and like do amazing, lose 30 pounds, and like, well, my God, they've never looked better. And then like 6 months to a year later, they're 50 pounds heavier because
they didn't learn the lifestyle change, the routine lifestyle change.
It's not a
sustainability, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, that's where making those small changes lead to a slower, progression through that. But, something like if you're trying aggressively to change your habits, like a half pound of weight change per week is actually a pretty aggressive thing for most populations, right? And as you were mentioning earlier before we started recording, if somebody is coming from a different place, if they are coming from a quite large body and they're starting to make small changes to whether it's to mental health, whether it's to like diet or anything else, those changes can be bigger because it's a relative change, right? If you're in the like hundreds of pounds, category, those changes will be bigger, and that's just how it goes. And then on the flip, for most people that are trying to, especially people that are trying to lose like 10 pounds or 15 pounds, it doesn't seem like that big of an ask, but it's a relative ask to the frame and the amount of change that needs to be done, right? So that last 15 pounds, that last 10 pounds is going to be probably as hard, if not harder, than the first 10 pounds.
And like to give the listeners a perspective, if you're watching the video, you can see that there's a size difference between Cam and I.
That's right, because she's been losing weight for longer than I have.
I mean,
I just read the magazine that she saw 3 years ago.
Let's go with, a couple differences, right? I'm shorter, I'm female, I weigh less. Okay, so me losing, let's say, 10 pounds versus Cam losing 10 pounds is different.
Please don't look at my body. I meant all of them.
All of them, yeah. Well, you're the one that decided to film these, so there you go. So keep that in mind. So when you're looking at the transformation journey of another person, right, you have to think in relative measurement to the frame of body. So it can be 0.5 pounds in a smaller body, and it could be 2 pounds in a heavier body per week. It's really dependent. And then you also have to take into consideration that bodies fluctuate in weight, depending if you're weighing in the morning or in the evening, after a meal, before a meal, if you've drank alcohol, not drank alcohol, lots of water, not lots of water, dehydrated, not dehydrated. So if you're watching, Cam is dancing, it's great. So there's a lot of factors to take into account about...
I think it's like if they're listening, Cam is dancing.
Right, thank you.
Because if they're watching, they already knew.
Yes. Right. Descriptive video, Cam. Okay. So you can fluctuate a lot, right?
Yeah.
And that actually happens in the visibility of body composition too. So if somebody is more dehydrated, for example, let's say like a bodybuilder pre-competition, they're very dehydrated. So they look more striated, right? So your body can have a different appearance day to day. So don't necessarily feel beat up if it's not looking the exact way or weighing the exact way that you think. It doesn't mean that you're not making progress.
Yeah, and just right on that point, I just want to jump in and say that like the like what we think of as articulate measures of this process, I tend to actually dissuade people from utilizing. So I don't think the scale is a friend. And what I mean by that, and I know you have a difference of opinion about that, but I think that like weighing yourself every day is a great way to depress yourself because there are weight fluctuations that happen. And along the list that I was dancing to, one other one to mention is hormonal balance at various points in the month.
And the life cycle.
Yeah, and that's not a gendered statement. Like even in testosterone forward male bodies, you tend to have hormone cycles as well. They're kind of just at the forefront of being.
Male PMS does exist.
Yes. But I mean, like, it's not untrue, right? And as we age, testosterone levels are different in the body, and as we go through life and we're stressed out, we've got too much cortisol, we've got not enough serotonin, we've got all these other things going on. So we're all of that stuff has to be taken into account. So the scale is not a friend. The mirror can be also, like, again, dysmorphic identity is absolutely a thing that people suffer from. I myself have done that. I was at one point, I think in 2009, I actually cracked the scale at, I don't mean to make that joke, but I was over 300 pounds. And that was due to an undiagnosed thyroid issue amongst a high stress job, amongst all kinds of like life issues that were going on. So, you know, and it took me years to get back to any sort of a working weight, but like that dysmorphia still resides. You still see, you know, like on certain days, I still see that 300-pound person looking back in the mirror, and you know that's going to be constant, and it's something that you know you work on with therapy and all these other things. That's why we always recommend that kind of stuff. But so like the scale, the mirror, you know, that head voice. When somebody comes along and has a nice compliment for you, I just pointed at Jess because sometimes she gives me nice compliments. Usually it's because she's asking for something, but you know, that's fine. Transactional relationships are totally normal in this new era in presidency. But that said, it was, you know, like you get that head voice that tells you, oh, she's just being nice to you. It's not true. And usually with a lot more swearing. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, and this is why, you know, quantitative data is so much more important than qualitative. So let me just specify what that means. So qualitative data would be like a quality of something. You look good.
So like,
right?
Are you saying like a subjective statement versus an empirical?
Sure.
Like
yeah,
empirical
exactly.
data.
Whereas quantitative is an actual measured thing, right? So the scale is an actual measured thing, but it isn't necessarily the best representation of body composition change.
Right.
Whereas, you know, measurements can be a better one. Body impedance can be a better one, which is a scan. You can do DEXA, which is a better one as well. So, for example, measurements would be that I'm going to measure Cam's biceps, forearms, legs, waist, hip, you know, calf, forehead, brain, whatever he needs, right? And then later, after a consistent program over a period of time, which is really important, we'll go into that more in a second, then I can remeasure and see if there's a change. And the scale may not change.
Right, and this, but that's kind of the punchline, right? Is that when I say the scale is not a friend, it's coming from that idea that you can't listen to that garbage truck roar its little engine. Tell you what. So when you're talking about the scale and you're talking about like consistent measurements over a long period of time, you will see a trending down. But like every single actual, like when you see the graph and it trends down, you'll actually see the data points going up and down on both sides of that, right? Like there'll be some that are, you know, anomalous and they'll be very, very high. And who knows, maybe you like, you know, that was after Thanksgiving dinner and there was like a ton of salt and you know.
Right. And if you do like weighing yourself on a daily basis, I know Cam doesn't, I actually do, but I take the average across a week. So if I'm working on weight, either to gain or lose, depending on what my goal is at the time, I will weigh almost every day, but I don't really pay any attention to it. I just take the average across a week. And does that trend in the direction of my goal?
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody. Some people don't have the mental space for that kind of practice.
Or the emotional space.
Or the emotional space for that kind of practice. So then you might want to pick a different measurement. Yeah. Right? So you can pick like we said, circumference, which is a really good one. Or you can do DEXA scans, which are generally relatively cheap. They're about $200. Or you can do something like body impedance, which is getting a lot cheaper. You can get them done for $60 to $80. And they'll tell you what your body fat percentage is, what muscle mass is in each arm, each leg. And there's obviously some reliability, validity issues with different types of machines. But that being said, it gives you an idea of a starting point and a goal point if that's something you're looking for. And that's real data. That's not you looking in the mirror and being like, I think I see, right? We all know that our eyes can trick us.
Yep. And like that's where that idea of consistency comes in as well. Because whatever you're doing, you have to commit to doing it for a long time. You have to commit to doing it for quite a while because it's
what was that?
While.
Okay.
While. Those small repeatable actions of change that you make in your life will lead to greater effect over time than big changes for a short amount of time. So
And that's what we've talked about this before, that consistency can overshadow intensity, right?
Yeah.
And we often talk about intensity being important for training, but intensity is not always, actionable on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you can show up 110% every day, like no one does that. Let's be honest. Most of us are showing up like 50% today and 30% tomorrow and maybe 70% the next day. Maybe sometimes we hit the 90, like that's a really sick day, but that just doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
So if you can have,
well, that 90 will lead to a 20 the next day.
exactly, right? So that's the thing is, showing up consistently, maybe at like 60%, 70% is much more important than going 90-10, 90-10, 90-10 back and forth, because it's just, you're not getting anywhere.
Right, that's true.
So, and I mean, this is something that we often talk about with our clients. That's why we write programs for people that can help keep them consistent week to week.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you want to do the same program week in and week out for at least a period of time so you can see if there's changes. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing for your body. You want to show up every week to the best of your ability with what timing you have, to be able to have some sort of answer that you've done something at the end of a period of time, not just today I'm good, today I do something, tomorrow I do nothing for 4 days. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I think that, in that respect, when we talk about being, when you talk about like repeating the same thing over and over and over again, I think there's also like, when we talk about like muscle training, muscle confusion is essential as well, right? So like
I hate that term.
I know, but it's something that's a common term.
Yeah, I guess it just reminds me of the 90s and P90X, like muscles aren't confused, but I understand where you're coming from. It's just that you want to keep something variable so that they're, adaptable is what you mean, but I hear muscle confusion and that just makes me giggle.
Well, again, it's just one of those common terms. I'm trying to use that. Like we're trying not to use weight loss. It's a term I also should probably kind of like phase out eventually, but I just haven't found a better one to use yet. Mm-hmm. But you're right. It's a matter of the adaptability of the body is a pretty phenomenal thing. So repeating the same exercises for too long really starts to reduce the efficacy of the program itself, and that's why we tend to change up the programs after like 4 weeks or so, depending on the client and what's going on. It can still be the same like lifts, the same types of things. We just change up the types of lifts that you're doing to hit the same muscles, just so it keeps it mentally interesting and fun.
And those changes, like just to specify, it doesn't need to be the biggest change, right?
Not
it
at
can
all.
be going from, a back squat to a goblet squat, or a back squat to a front squat, or it can go from a split squat to a back lunge. Like, it's slightly different. You're still working the same thing, but it gives you that little bit of variability so that you can continue to see body composition change and work on those weights that are similar and get what you're looking for.
It's always going to be a Bulgarian split squat.
It's always a Bulgarian split. The answer is always Bulgarian split squat.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yes, we were mad at you when we put that in your program.
And you might have seen that in the notes when we wrote, ha 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 ha, good luck with this one.
So speaking, like, transitioning back to the loving place, one thing I think is that when people talk about body composition change, diet is a really important factor. It's at least as important as the exercise that you're doing. Now, the exercise that you're doing, that activity is really key to like locking in the results, right? Like, so as things are happening, you still want to be building more muscle. You still want to be challenging the body so that it knows that it should stay in a place of, like burning that extra energy that it had stored, because it needs to use it. And you want to be challenging the musculature too, because if you're doing something like calorie deficit, or where you're changing to like a lower or different caloric intake, your body will start to catabolize muscle very, very quickly, even before it starts to hit the fat reserves, unfortunately, because it's a faster source of fuel. So by telling the body that you still need to like have that muscle, right? Continuous exercise, as it were, then you're going to keep like heading towards that idea of burning more fat, which is kind of what I think.
Also, it makes sense to do both at the same time. And let's go from like an aesthetic perspective.
Starving and working out?
Not quite.
Oh.
They go together because you can be losing fat mass, but if you don't have muscle to actually show through that fat mass, it's going to take longer for you to show definition. And if that's a goal for you, it's important to make sure that you're doing both simultaneously. Mm-hmm. It is hard to gain muscle in a deficit. However, it can be done. Often it's referred to as like, some people call main gaining, which would be maintaining calories and gaining muscle mass, right? So that you can show a little bit more. Or you can go into a deficit and you wouldn't have as much muscular growth, but it's still possible to have some, and you're more likely to show, quote unquote, sooner.
Yeah, and that's that idea of maintaining the amount of muscle mass that you're starting with, right? Versus
especially maintaining the muscle mass. And this is why people talk about protein so heavily in weight loss or in body composition. Yeah, and then talking about the metabolism too, as we go into that process of trying to go through body comp change, the metabolism will start to change. It will actually start to slow down. So funny, it sounds like the body's actually then working against you because of the fact that you want a faster metabolism to burn more, energy during the workouts, during day-to-day life and stuff like that. Well, when you exercise more, it can speed up metabolism as well, but it would slow down because you become more efficient with the calories that you have.
Right, and so when we talk about metabolism slowing down, we're talking about basically just at rest, right? And you can create more efficiency in the time, as that slows down, you can create more efficiency in the time that you actually are working out, where you speed that back up, so that becomes a higher change. And so there can be more benefit from that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting too that people who have undergone, I'm going to use the term weight loss because they've become a smaller person.
Muscle confusion.
It's just you want to piss me off, just keep saying muscle confusion. And when you become a smaller, let's say, version of yourself, wow, that's loud. The garbage truck really wants to say hi. You actually become more efficient with your calories at almost 10% less calories. So somebody who used to be in a large body and now is in a smaller body can actually survive off 10% less calories.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really interesting because you've become more efficient with it. So that's what kind of CAM means about slowing down your metabolism too.
Is that what CAM means?
Is that what CAM means?
Well, I've been told that's what CAM means.
Okay. In part.
And I think too, with the other side of that is that what it can also mean is, and kind of building off what you're saying, is that as you're going through that process, tweaking your plan is going to be important too, right? Because if that metabolism is slowing down, you might be able to reduce the caloric intake over time, or adjust it to other to other benefits or other ends with that. So, but then, talking about the variabilities, stress, sleep, and aforementioned hormones will affect this process as well. So, it's the body is so complex. It wouldn't be simple if it was just insert coin, lose weight.
Yeah, I mean, the worst and best part is that it's a little bit different for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And so when Cam's talking about that it has to constantly go through tweaks, I know that's such a frustrating point for a lot of my clients because because they're just I just figured it out and now I have to change it again. And I mean, that's just life, isn't it? That's for absolutely everything, not just your fitness. It's not just one recipe. So every time you think you got it figured out, you don't. Yeah. So it's constantly having to tweak that. So that can change your timeline too, right?
Yep.
So you may have a timeline in mind, but life happens, or something changes, and then you just have to work with it. And a lot of people find that frustrating, but if you accept that that's a challenge that helps you grow and understand yourself better, it can help you be consistent.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the first point we were making, it's that there's kind of a term that I've seen before that I've anchored into, and it's
muscle confusion, or
it's muscle confusion. It's that the first 10 pounds can take 6 months, right? And it's in a perfect world,
because you're getting to know yourself, right?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, in a perfect world, it could be faster than that. But the reality is that you're making slow methodical changes to your routines, and those slow changes are all about creating habit, creating consistency, right? So for the first little while, it's not even about the weight loss aspect of it. It's not about the body composition change. It's about you starting to do the things that it takes to make those changes really stick. So then they're no longer a change, they're just part of your routine, right? And from there, you know, like going slow and adding a little bit every couple of weeks, every month, something like that, is a really sustainable way to do that.
Yes.
And for some people, those changes have to be small, right? For some people, they can be just small. But we don't want to make big changes right away because, as we were talking about earlier, fast to gain is fast to lose. Big changes that you make won't be sustainable necessarily. For some people, they will. And you'll hear about those because the exception always makes a good story. But for most people, as Jess was saying, the 99% are always going to be more well served by making these small changes incrementally over time. And that's why the actual scale weight that we see change will be a slower process than most people want it to be. And that's the most frustrating part. People come to us and say, like, I want to lose 70 pounds by the weekend because it's going to be sunny. And, you know, then it's like...
Which limb would you like to cut off?
We've made the joke before. Exactly. Yeah. But, like, you know, like when you sit down with somebody and say, like, look, dude, like, I hear you and I see you. I understand that you want to make these changes, and for like from the health perspective, you know, kudos, that's lovely. But some of the time, a lot of the time, people are coming from that place of lack. They're coming from that place of not feeling good enough about who they are in their body. And yeah, we absolutely want to change that. Both of us have been in conditions and places in our lives where we've been in that same space, but it's not healthy to encourage that. It's not healthy to reinforce that. And that's actually pretty predacious of anybody who would. And that's a lot of industries, right? There's a lot of industries that are served by that. And that's why it's so common to see that, you know, like kind of like predatory, you know, language used in so many facets of what we do from day to day. So that being said, yeah, it's just go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm getting like
psychic message.
No, just just these little flashbacks to, you know, aspects of my own journey over the last goodness 18 years, let's say. Okay.
She never says goodness. She was thinking of the swear word.
Yeah. Over the last 18 years is kind of when I started doing more fitness. And
yeah, like when you were 6.
I'm not that young. I started right in high school.
She was a prodigy. 6 years old in high school? It's insane.
So, and each change has happened slowly. I thought it was going to be this big thing that was going to cause this big change in my life and give me the body I wanted. And every time it never worked. Yeah. And I mean, a part of that was that I didn't always stick with things. And a part of that was that I expected them to work too quickly, abandoned them, and then just gave up and tried something else over again, right? But when I started doing slow things and just incorporating stuff, like the first thing I remember having I noticed more was I cut out juice because I used to just walk by the fridge and take a sip of juice all the time, and I didn't really realize how much juice I was drinking. And I just decided to do that. And I started to notice a little bit of a difference, and that was 3 months. And then, you know, the next 3 months I said, okay, you know what? I'm just not going to have ice cream 4 times a week. Okay, great. So I know, I love ice cream so much. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to eat a cup of frozen fruit instead. And like, I know these are little small things and they don't necessarily show that big of a difference in the moment. But when you keep adding these little things over and over again, they start to compile into a healthier lifestyle until you hit a point where you don't need those things because you're learning how to take care of yourself better. And then you notice that you feel better. And this is my progress over 18 years, right? I'm not saying that, you know, right?
It doesn't take that long.
It doesn't take that long. But I'm saying, little things like that, adding all the time is what actually gets you to a healthier lifestyle, a better routine.
Yeah, and incorporating things like that, like this goes back to, I'm not trying to cut you off, but
Please.
I just really want to point out that I was trying to cut her off. I'm just trying to point out that's those like small tweaks, right? And those small
Exactly.
tweaks become sustainable, they become part of your lifestyle, and they just stick. Right, so if it's 18 years for her, and not as much time for me because again it was like 2009, so not quite that long. Those changes that I had to start to make over the next few years, and it took solidly like 4+ years for me to make all those changes to start getting back to like a healthier place. And even then, it also was really helpful to do a lot of therapy around the stressors that caused me to get to that point in the first place, in order to not revert back to the physical things that were creating the situation of the body that I was in at the point, right? So all these things are really quite important over time, and it's I hate to say it's about patience. Like it's so
It
cliche.
really is, though. Everything's about patience, and that's why it's important.
So that you don't become a patient.
And that's why it's important to do things in phases.
Sorry,
Right?
I was really impressed with my own.
Yeah, it's funny. That's why it's important to do things in phases, because it just makes it so much more palatable. No pun intended about that. It just makes it so much
Better to be palatable than palliative.
Ooh, I like it.
Oh, there we go. Got one.
But phases can be a really good idea, because it slowly introduces you to an idea.
Oh, yeah.
So what we're trying to say is, with your body comp changes, try to make sure that you're patient, right? Don't expect things to happen immediately overnight. And a lot of people, Cam says the first 6 months can be difficult, especially if you're doing it on your own without help. It might be longer if you're not getting the assistance that you need. And we're not saying you have to buy services. We're saying that, with assistance and guides, it does go quicker. Yeah. But without them, you can still do it on your own. You just need to have the expectation that it takes time to do it healthy and to make it a lifestyle change that's going to be long lasting, as in the rest of your life, if you can.
Right.
Right.
Yes. I think the only other thing I want to do, we're talking about phases. If you're in a structured body comp kind of like plan, it's okay to go in phases, because you can't kind of stay in, and like we were talking about before with muscle confusion. Hey, there we go. We got a swirl. Wait, but like we were talking about with that.
What are they confused about? What? Like, my mom is not my mom? Like, you know what I mean?
What?
They confused about, is blue red or is red? Are they colorblind? What are they confused about? They don't know when to turn left or turn right.
I'm always confused about if blue is red.
They don't have a brain.
We're
We're the brain.
So yeah, that's true. And that's kind of not true. They're finding, we don't need to talk about that. There are brain cells in the muscles. Anyway.
Communication, yes.
So the punchline is that along the way of like doing like a weight loss journey or a body composition change journey, like if you go through that like calorie deficit for a while, you hit kind of a certain either mile marker of change that you were looking for, or a specific amount of time where you have been changing for all that time, it's okay to go into like a maintenance phase and spend some time there so that the body can readjust, so that you can really sit into the new habits that you've developed, and really just kind of like take some time with that. And again, it's that idea of like 90-10%, or do you want to be like more sustainable with showing up with a reasonable amount of effort every time, right? So this is a way to like incorporate some changes and then just stick with that for a while, so that you feel like you've really locked that in. And then when you're ready, and it can be like months or even like like a year plus on, you go back into the body comp change phase, and spend some more time in that, hit another mile marker, go back into maintenance, because part of it too is that you can't always spend time in that change, because it's tough on the brain. It's tough
Very tough.
it's tough to be in a calorie deficit, like especially when you have all these other responsibilities in your life. You're asking your brain to do so much more with so much less, at least like effectively it feels that way. Even though it's the same amount, like it's gonna feel more stressful, and the people around you.
Well, thank you for not always
being in a calorie deficit.
Yeah, because I know, like, personally,
angry,
I've definitely had people say that I've been more grumpy when I'm in a deficit, or I have a specific goal that I'm working towards. And I don't notice it because I'm just thinking, sometimes I just want to exercise, or I'm just hungry, right? I'll usually be fine, but every once in a while, people tell me that I'm just not as friendly when I'm in a goal-oriented mindset. And that's a possibility. Right?
So every time you're mean to me, should I ask you if you're in a goal-oriented mindset?
Always in a goal-oriented mindset.
Explains so much.
Well, if you stop saying muscle confusion, maybe it's agree.
You got to confuse those muscles.
Yeah, there we go.
It's not the same term.
But so it'll be nice, to prioritize other things sometimes. And so that could be a good maintenance time. I'm just going to maintain right now and focus my energy, I want to do cool stuff energy on something else. And that can be career, or your family, or, your dog, or whatever it is that you need.
The dog.
The dog.
Yeah.
Dog confusion.
I'm often confused about what my dog decides to do.
Fair.
But anyway, that being said, it's kind of the end of what we wanted to talk about. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. We appreciate that you have come along with us for this little bit of an adventure of a conversation about body composition change. And of course, if you would like some help, we are available. We have online programs that we offer. We have in-person training that we are offering out of Fit on 6th in New Westminster, or potentially at your home or Stratagym if that is something that you need. And again, our online programs, we have custom programs, and we have our at-home monthly program, which is a low-cost program that is all body weight and has a different theme every month. There's 3 half-an-hour workouts that are released every week, and it's a lot of fun for a really great price. And that's the end of the advertising component. And yeah, we want you to go out there, have a great time, enjoy the rest of the summer or fall or winter or spring whenever you're listening to it, or apocalypse if you're listening to this in a bunker after everything's gone wrong. Thank you so much. And this may just be passing the time, but that being said, yeah, thank you.
Bye.
That was not the best ending, but that's okay.
I liked it, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
oh, great.
It was actually pretty good. I thought you were doing well until you said it wasn't a great ending. It's like when people say, "Oh, sorry, this is my first day," and you were like, "I didn't even notice."
This is my first day.
I didn't even notice you were fine until you said that. Now I noticed.
You didn't notice I was fine? So I'm not fine?
You're fine.
Oh, okay. Great.